their eyes out with my knife. Yo-ho!
Yo-ho!
Oh, stop. That's sick.
I agree. None of them were singing in the wrong key.
No, I wasn't. It was Lautzenheiser. I was singing in E-flat minor.
The song's in F-sharp major.
I think they're the same thing. I mean, E-flat is the relative minor of F-sharp.
No, it isn't. The relative minor is 3 half tones down from the major, not up.
No, it's 3 down. Like A is the relative minor of C major.
But isn't A sharp in C major?
Wait, are you singing Mixolydian scales or something?
A sharp is tonic to C major. It's the 6.
No, it isn't.
Well, it'd be like a raised 13th, if anything.
From Buffalo, New York, where William McKinley and Millard Fillmore died. They died. It's the Struggle is Real Buffalo Music Podcast.
Welcome to the Struggle is Real Buffalo Music Podcast, where we talk about the ups, downs, lefts, rights.
Dude, I'm driving.
Of the Buffalo music scene. I'm Ryan Gurnett, and if I see one more band describe themselves as defying genre, I'm going to start beating the hell out of Kelly.
But I'm Kelly.
And welcome to episode number 37 of the podcast, folks. I am in my car right now with my wife, and we are on our way to Toronto, and shit has been so busy over the last few weeks, but that does not stop me from making this podcast. So, Kelly, say hi to everybody.
Hi to everybody.
That's Kelly. That's about all she's going to want to talk on this episode. But yes, we are on the QEW driving into Toronto right now for our vacation. But before we do that, I'm here to talk to you folks. So, over the last couple weeks, I interviewed everyone. I talked with Brendan Shea from Brendan and the Strangest Ways. I talked with Zach Burgess from Archers. I talked with TJ and Sam from Days Ago, and Tyler and Jesse from Aircraft. I was hoping to squeeze all of that into one episode, but that is beyond impossible because on May 18th, I went out with my recorder, and I got us some awesome live performances from this, The Lady or the Tiger, and nuSpeak. So we will be listening to all of those a little later, and the stuff from Brendan and from Brendan Shea from Brendan the Strangest Ways. We'll be listening to that interview today. He's going to talk to us about going to Nashville, working on a new album, and kind of what it's like dealing with, full-time studio musicians. So yeah, this will be our last episode with all WNY. I want to take one more opportunity to thank Scott Leffler for all of his guidance and for letting me post basically whatever the hell I wanted to on his website. We will still be involved with all WNY, and the podcast will still be a part of the radio stream, but it will, and for future episodes, it'll be hosted on thinktwiceradio.com, which has a huge family of locally run podcasts, which we are happy to be a part of, and we'll start talking about all the different other podcasts available starting in our next episode, and I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what that's going to be about. So without further ado, we got to get going. We've got so much material. So we are going to play a quick song, and then we'll be back to talk about previous shows. Like I mentioned, in the next segment, we're going to talk about Porchfest, which was on May 18th. It involves maybe even up to about 100 porches locally all around Buffalo. It was great seeing music all around the city, including this song featuring my former band and former co-host, Dennis Reed Jr. This is the first of the 3 songs from Porchfest that we'll be playing today, and this is Kid by The Lady or the Tiger on the Struggle is Real Buffalo Music Podcast on allwny.com.
Luminous and white, We will stay at your place tonight, and we will lay until the street comes back to life. Arm in arm, listening to tunes. Your eyes were nervous birds under the cheap sunglasses you wore the entire day. You said that they helped to keep people away. Now, people weren't your problem anyway. I'm at the ready just in case you text. Sleep with my phone against my chest. Dreaming you said words you never did. I got it bad for you, kid. You're always on the town. You know everybody when you come around. They all shout your name out, shout it right out loud. You high-five barbacks, you cheek kiss owners, but you don't want to see me performing a post-mortem on each kiss. How could I get so close and miss? For all I know, you went straight back with him. I got it bad for you, kid. More time, middle solo, 3, 4. A bed of diamonds shining on the lake beyond. I was thinking of Dante when you spun around and kissed me. But were you the path or were you the lion? Were you the lady or the tiger? You're terrible. Thing in the world. I got it bad for you, girl. Maybe you thought that I'd just hang around the zombie chorus of your clowns. I feel so low down, I almost wish I did. I got it bad for you. Swear that I'm the man for you. I got it bad for you, kid. Thank you.
And we are back, and that was Kid by the Lady or the Tiger, which is a brand new song of theirs, and I have to say, even as someone who's been in the band, that might be my favorite Lady of the Tiger song. It is, it's excellent. So hopefully they can record that, and it won't take them 3 years like it takes them to record everything else. And yeah. So anyway, so let's talk about some previous shows. So Porchfest. We went and saw Lady of the Tiger. They played on Symphony Circle, which is right across the street from Kleinhans. It worked out great because graduation was getting out as we were getting there, so parking spots were opening up all over the place. So I hung out there and I caught Lady of the Tiger set, and it's weird watching someone else play my bass lines, but it was nice seeing all my friends again. It was a really good performance, and I think it seems like they're really leaning in more towards the Britpop, Lady of the Tiger is, and kind of some of the folkier stuff than they were before, which I think might have been a little more like 90s alt-rock. So it's cool seeing them kind of differentiate themselves a little more with their songwriting. Then we hit the road, and I don't remember where we saw them, but we saw nuSpeak. nuSpeak is a one-man production, and of course I don't have his name in front of me right now, and again, I'm in a car. But I hung out for about 20-30 minutes. One-man band. He had a keyboard, he had guitars, he has all sorts of pedals. He has a beautiful voice, which I was a little taken aback by when I got there. So we'll be playing a song from that later. That was great. And then we saw this. If you have never listened to this podcast ever, you might not think I like the band this very much. But if you have, you'll know that I think they're wonderful. They played a Porch. It was great. The whole set was awesome. I recorded a big chunk of it, and later on we're going to be playing them. We're going to be playing Wanting Eyes from their set. And yeah, Porchfest is wonderful. Like we were kind of in some, side street kind of places, even at Kleinhans a little bit compared to some of like what was going on in Elmwood, and all those places are cool. But like you check out Elmwood, and these spots are just overflowing with people into the streets, and it's really wonderful to see. And sign up for next year's Porchfest. I don't know when it signs up or when the website updates, but it's a lot of fun, and there's a lot of great bands. And if you're not in a band, just mark it on your calendar for next year and take the afternoon off and come out and see some of the best bands that Buffalo has to offer. So that was May 18th. Then on May 24th, we had a Struggle is Real show at Milky's. We had the Scarecrow show, the Molise, Cheap Peach, and Elemantra. Cheap Peach opened up the night. They are a shoegaze band from Fredonia. They were really fun. I really like them a lot. I hope to see them around the scene more. I think they'd fit in great with bands like Previous Love and Circular Logic, and just some really... It was nice noise is what it was. It wasn't the kind of stuff that gives you a headache. It felt melodic, and it felt kind of right what they were doing, and I think they're all between like 19 and 21, so I think going forward they're super promising. The Molise played second. The Molise are so much fun. Their singer, who I'm gonna mispronounce her name, so I'm just gonna not try it. Just super energetic, and they're extremely tight and dancey, and people were really getting into it. It seemed like there were a lot of people there at Milky's who hadn't heard of them before who were really getting into it. Then the Scarecrow show went on, and the Scarecrow show blew the roof off the place. I haven't been doing a ton of shows at Milky's, but I've never seen that many people just come in off the streets because they wanted to see the band, and that's just the kind of set they had. The energy and just everything was perfect. I love those guys, and we're going to keep doing more stuff with them, and come and check them out, because I keep putting them on all this stuff because I really do believe in them. I think if you put good music in front of people, regardless of what kind of rock it is, if you put it in front of rock fans, I think you'll find that people enjoy it. So check out the Scarecrow show. They're playing Infringement Festival. There will be more shows that we're going to announce in the next coming months that include them as well. They're also on our Planned Parenthood show on August 25th. And yeah, good guys, great band. Check them out. Elemantra closed out the night. They played a real nice set. Honestly, the energy felt like it got a little sucked out of the room after Scarecrow show, and I wouldn't really envy anyone who had to take in that spot after them. But Elemantra did a good job. They played a good set. But I think the Scarecrow show's performance kind of set everyone to stun, so I think anything that came next was going to feel a little overshadowed. All right, I apologize for our GPS interrupting us there for a second. Google doesn't seem to really have a good grasp on things that are happening in Canada, apparently, because it keeps screwing up. So anyway, yes, that was the show at Milky's.
5 minutes slowdown in 1 kilometer. You are still on the fastest route.
All right, we are still, folks. The good news is we're still on the fastest route. So I was looking at the script and I'm like, okay, so what's next? And it just says play this, and I'm like, shit, I didn't finish the script, did I? And then after I stared at it for a good minute, and then I realized it was the band this. So we are going to have an interview with Brendan Shea from Brendan and the Strangest Ways, but first we are going to play this from Porchfest on May 18th. This is a song called Wanting Eyes, here on the Struggle is Real Buffalo Music Podcast on allwny.com.
guys.
I am joined with Brendan Shea from Brendan in the Strangest Ways. Hey, Brendan.
How's it going? It's excellent name, by the way. I was always curious, like, where that came from, if I'm allowed to ask a question.
Oh, the name of the podcast?
Yeah.
The original idea of the podcast was that my favorite thing to do when I'm hanging out with musicians is it's all about just the weird stories you get. And with a band I was in with the original creator of the podcast, to get our full band together, we auditioned 16 guitar players and 8 drummers. And it was the weirdest stuff you'd ever think of. Like, one guy played with his back to us. One guy would only play a jazz beat, and we were in a jazz band. It was just one guy asked me the most amazing question ever to this day, and I hope no one ever tops it. He said, "What chords and keys do you use?"
Interesting.
All of them, typically. So just from all that, I'm like, I just want a podcast where we just talk about like the stuff that happens behind the scenes that we never have to deal with. I will give former co-host Dennis Reed Jr. credit for coming up with the name. He crushed that. I don't think I had anything up to that point. The name's one of the last things. And then of course I didn't follow one of my rules that I tell bands, and that's when you come up with a name, search for it on Google and see what comes up.
Yeah.
Because I didn't think about the Struggle is Real podcast, so the Buffalo Musics are at tail end, so no one sues us.
Gotcha. Yeah, well, I mean, you get a lot of good stories out of that, I would imagine, because musicians are a real bunch of weirdos. So
oh, yeah. No, it's been great. Like, almost every guest we've had has been super interesting, and if we use this will be used somewhere around episode 38, 39. So
okay.
It's been a slow roll, but it's a lot of fun, and plus we're doing the spin-off podcast, which is going to be the one where we're playing more music. And, yeah, and then with the new studio, it comes fully equipped with video equipment, too, so there might be a video podcast, too.
Nice.
So, cool things are happening. Speaking of cool things are happening, you've been working on a new album.
Yes.
In Nashville.
Yep.
So, first off, why go to Nashville? Why not stay in Buffalo and hire Buffalo musicians?
Well, it started with a group of Buffalo musicians. I mean, actually, a couple of them were transplants, but a group of guys I was playing with for about a year or so. We went into a local studio here and laid down all the band tracks for 10 songs for a full-length album. And then, as is custom usually, a lot of the time, that band kind of fell apart. Guys were starting up different, original projects of their own and just couldn't make time for everything at once. So a couple of those guys left, and we were a good live band. We had fun playing together, but just like it didn't really translate to recording. Just like the performances weren't totally there. And after a couple of like homemade projects, which had a lot of spirit as far as I'm concerned, but just like technically the sound wasn't quite as good as it could have been. I really, really wanted this to be top of the line, just great sounding stuff. So I decided it was more of like an economic kind of weighing the investment sort of thing. When I made the decision to go down to Nashville, it's like I can either spend 6 months and probably twice as much money trying to piece together all these things, a lot of auxiliary instruments, strings, piano, extra guitars, all these kinds of things. It's like rather than trying to round up all these people and invest all this time in getting it done, it's, from what I've heard, I can go down to Nashville, I can, bring in a crew of like 8 professional players who like do this Monday through Friday every day of their life and just knock it out in a day, which is what we did. We got 10 songs done in 6 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, it was kind of like a whirlwind experience. I almost felt like I was just kind of, holding onto the reins for dear life, like being taken on this journey, watching this stuff, these sounds I had in my head kind of come to life almost by coincidence. Like, there wasn't a whole lot of pre-production time or a whole lot. The way I was coached was, these guys know what they're doing. Basically, let them do it. Don't give them like too much direction or whatever, because all you're going to do is restrain them, and you won't wind up getting as good of a result. So that's tough for me because I'm a very, hands-on, production-minded sort of.
Especially when you have all that money invested in it, too.
Yeah, exactly. And I always, I tell people my songs are almost like my kids. Like, I'm very protective of them, and, I want them to be as good as they can possibly be. So, anyway, I don't know. Like I was saying, we just sort of arrived at all these great performances, which I'm super, super excited about. And now we're just getting into the mixing stages. Going to release at least a couple of singles over the summer and the fall. I want to do some videos to go along with those, which will be a first-time thing for me. Like, I've done a bunch of live performance videos, but never like a produced, story kind of professional thing yet. So we're going to look into that as well and just have like a pretty massive PR campaign behind the whole thing. And the idea is really to just expand the audience.
Sure.
Yeah. So I'm really excited about it. A lot of big things are happening.
So are you, when spending, what you have on the musicians in the studio, are you hands-on at all with the mixing process? Or at this point, are you kind of just leaving it to them so you don't, tie their hands up too much, so to speak?
Yeah, well, my first thought was to attempt to mix it myself, because I have like a few versions, backdated version of Pro Tools, and I have like a very, very like basic fundamental knowledge of how it works. But, in the interest of trying to save a few bucks, I'm like, well, let me just take a stab at doing it myself. And then you get into, I don't know, I get very obsessive about it, and, I get to the point where I'm like tweaking a dial like, 2% one way.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, does this sound any different? Is it better? Is it worse? Or what if I hit this button and, something that should take an hour like winds up taking a day? And, I just felt myself kind of, going down a pretty deep rabbit hole.
Pit of despair.
So, yeah, exactly. So I'm like, well, this probably isn't the best way to go about it. I should find someone who really knows what they're doing. And it got to the point where I'm like, I've invested so much in this already. It's like now is not the time to try and cut corners. Like,
absolutely.
Might as well just, double down on it and, get it sounding technically as good as it can. So got a couple different options I'm looking into right now, and hopefully going to get that decision made in coming weeks, and then have the first song released next month sometime.
Cool. If you don't mind my asking, how much does it cost for an 8-piece band to come and record an album? Like I don't need exact receipts, but like ballpark, like if I'm a singer-songwriter and I've got the money to spend and want to go to Nashville, like how much would it be to get a band like that?
It really was not that unreasonable, compared with, what it would have taken to do it locally, but have it take, 5 times as long, just the efficiency with which these guys work. I think it's all like a union regulated thing, but each player, they break it up into 3-hour sessions. So we did like 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the afternoon, and we did 5 songs in each session. But for 3 hours, each player costs like just under $200.
Oh,
which
wow.
is,
That's not bad at all.
Bad.
Yeah.
And with the engineer and like the studio fees and all that stuff, the whole 6-hour block wound up costing about $3,000.
Oh no, that's not bad at all for.
Yeah. Which, I mean, was not as bad as I would have expected initially. I was thinking it was gonna, cost whatever 3-4 times that much.
But, oh yeah, no, I hear. I'm going to Nashville to record something, and I'm like 15,000.
Yeah,
Like you start to, it can get astronomical. I mean, depending what studios you're at. But no, I mean, if you do think about it, GCRs, I think about $75 an hour, and if you can take your recording time and have it, and then have all that extra money and just to put it into a musician so you don't have to use that time. That does seem a lot more efficient than I think some people would think it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I was, able to do it. I mean, if it would have been something astronomical like that, it wouldn't even have been an option. But the fact that, it's really doesn't cost that much more than, doing it locally or doing it anywhere else. And we recorded at a place called County Q, which I know have had a lot of big names in there. And of course, they're all escaping me at the moment now. But the guys, Paul, who is the studio manager, and the drummer who leads the session band, really cool dude, very on top of his stuff. And then Ace was the engineer, great to work with, had a real good ear and taste for the kind of stuff we were doing. And some of the guys we brought in there, John Yudkin played strings for me, cello, violin, banjo, and mandolin, and he, I think, has spent most of his last year touring South America with like a Brazilian pop artist.
Oh, wow.
And they were playing like 80,000 seat stadiums and stuff. And then he came in and played on my record, and then Dan Dudmore played steel guitar, and he got his start, I think, in like the early 70s in the Southern California scene, playing with like the Eagles and Linda Ronstadt and people like that. So just having, some of these guys performing my stuff and like really knocking it out of the park was like a pretty humbling and awesome experience. I'm glad I did it.
Did you get to pick individual members for the session band, or are they all like one package?
Paul Sothan, the drummer, he lined up all the players out of his network of, guys that he works with fairly regularly. And he picked them based on, my style and like, the sounds I was going for. He went with like the Americana, like indie sort of guys, as opposed to like the, some of like the commercial pop country players that he has access to, because the sounds are similar, but they're also very different. So, and I mean, everything that was played was like super tasteful and, served the music in a excellent way. So yeah, all the people we got lined up, I was super happy with.
Cool. Does the sound of the new stuff you're working on, is it similar to your old stuff? Is it different? Like, how does it compare to kind of your old stuff?
Yeah, it's I guess fairly similar. Most of the 10 tracks are kind of like full band sound, but there are a couple, more stripped down, like acoustic-y kind of songs. But yeah, a lot of the same instrumentation, just I would say rendered with like much more precision and mastery than, the self-titled record I did a few years ago, because I was playing most of the instruments on that one. So it's similar sounds, but cleaner and better, I guess I would say.
Sure. Your studio in Nashville, any fun bells or whistles that kind of, when you first started checking out the studio, kind of surprised you? I know, like, Outer Limits locally, they have like an Xbox PlayStation room, and I just went to GCR where they have that big room where they actually there's tiles on the walls where you can deaden it extra, and they've got this amazing stack of vintage gear that just like makes your eyes bulge out. Was there anything like that you came into and it was just like, whoa?
What did they have? They had a couple cool, like, super old-looking, older than I am, like, analog tape machines in the control room. I don't know too much about how any of that stuff works, but I did have some conversations with Paul about, like, cutting tape and, like, editing things that way back in the day. They had a nice grand piano, like a whole separate room just for like the piano instruments, different keyboards and stuff kind of stacked on top of each other. That was another guy, Jimmy Wallace, played some piano and organ tracks for me, and he tours with the Wallflowers, I think, and a few other people of that caliber. What else did they have in there? Probably the nicest Keurig machine I've ever seen. We went through a lot of coffee and tea. And yeah, I don't know. I'm not a super big gearhead, so there probably was a lot more, cool
Sure.
and important stuff than I even realized. But the vibe in there was just, really cool. They have a couple different studios, and we were in the big one, Studio A, they called it. They had an old kind of broken down basketball hoop out in the back parking lot, and I was told George Strait played basketball out there at some point with somebody, and I don't know if he was very good at it because somebody said he was pretty short. But
George Strait seems like I think he'd be a dirty player.
You think so?
I feel yeah, I don't know.
Throwing elbows and stuff.
Exactly. I get a vibe from that. Yeah, that's exactly how it happens. Did you guys have any conversations about using any of those old tape machines for what you're doing?
No, not really. I don't even know if they're still operational or anything. They might just be more antiques, but that's something I've always had in the back of my mind that I would love to do is, get an analog tape album. Just the warmth and the tone you get out of that sort of sound would be something I'd really like to hear. But I think that winds up that would get into probably the $15,000 range. Like you were talking
absolutely.
About before. Yeah, that kind of stuff I think moves a little slower. Than
I've heard even just
Pro
the price.
Tools does.
I've heard even just the price for the reel itself has just gotten astronomical. Because I had to buy a reel in college. I'm old enough where I learned on 2-inch reel.
Okay.
So I've been through all that, and it takes extra time, but that warmth is nice. But it is hard to find places that still have any of that equipment floating around anymore, and it's fewer and far between the people who can repair that stuff. Then on top of that,
I believe it.
So for this will be a topic on a later episode. How do you break up with someone in a band the right way?
Oh man. Well, I can tell you what is not the right way. In addition to doing my own original thing, I play in a couple of cover groups around town here just to, make a little extra money on the side. And
which groups are you in?
There's one is an upstart 90s cover group called Bart Vandelay. I'm actually in that one.
Oh, yeah,
with,
okay. I've seen that on
my
Facebook.
brother is the co-lead vocalist, and we get those brother harmonies going. It's really, we're having a lot of fun with it.
Great name, by the way.
Thank you, yeah. I'm in a new acoustic duo. It's guitar and ukulele called Cantwell Function. And that's still in the development practicing stages, but by midsummer we'll be doing some gigging around.
Sure. Who's the other half of that duo?
Her name is Connie, and she's got a big long Polish last name. I'm not even sure how to pronounce if I wanted to, but yeah, we've been working together for a couple months, and a mix of a whole bunch of contemporary Americana stuff, and then some older classic rock and country. We do a little bit of Johnny Cash and Chris Christopherson and that kind of stuff. But then also some, and this is more her area of expertise than mine, but some current, pop music and commercial country and that sort of thing too. Just a whole mix of everything, but sort of shuffled around a little bit and presented in a different way than maybe people have heard it before, which kind of makes it fun. And the last one, actually the one I've been with the longest, is a band called IoT that does a mix of, classic and prog rock, some 90s alternative stuff. Basically the way we sell it is songs everybody knows, but no one else is playing.
I love that. That's great.
Yeah, and we actually did a gig at the Hamburg Music Festival last night. We were at Mammoser's,
Oh, sure.
Which has like a real nice patio and like generally pretty good built-in crowd. And also at the end of the night they bring out a couple plates of chicken wings for the band, which is like probably the biggest selling point.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, they were good. But anyway, the drummer, I've been with those guys for like a year and a few months, and the drummer we've been working with the whole time quit without any notice like a day before this gig. Ooh. Which he sent an email to the one guitar player who's kind of like, the founder and the leader of the group or whatever, and said effective immediately he wasn't going to be playing drums with us anymore. So that's a bad way to break up with.
So it wasn't even a group email, it was just one person. He made someone else disperse the news.
And he was the last time we rehearsed, I think, was about a week ago. And he, all the guys in this group play in a few different projects, and I just happened to see, I was driving down Union Road in West Seneca, past the Rockin' Buffalo, and I saw the name of his original project was up on the marquee for the same night we were supposed to play the Hamburg Music Festival. So we got to rehearsal, and I asked him, I'm like, are you going to be there on Saturday because I saw, your other band's playing at this place. He's like, oh yeah, I'm going to be there. I'll make it out to both. He's like, I'm going to play with you guys from 8 till 11, and then the other show doesn't start till like close to midnight.
Oh no.
And I remember after rehearsal, I pulled the leader of the group aside, and I'm like, man, we should probably line up some kind of insurance plan because I just have like a bad feeling about this. This guy has done this to us before, like just at the last minute, be like, you got to find another drummer for tonight because this other group is original music, and I'm the only one who knows the songs, and I have to be there and all this stuff.
Drummers, how self-important. Come on now.
There are some exceptions, but I don't know. So to answer your question, a good way to break up with your band is to, provide ample notice. And, I've had it happen to me a few times. Actually, I told you about the story making this current record and then actually making the self-titled, the debut album a few years ago when I was in Seattle. That band broke up like while we were in the studio recording their tracks too, but it was for the same reason. The guy playing bass wanted to start his own project where he was going to be the songwriter and the guitar player. And I was with my group in Seattle recording the Strangest Ways album, and after we got all the band tracks done, the bassist came to me and he said, I'm going to be leaving the group. I'm starting my own project where I'm going to be the front man and the songwriter, playing my original stuff. And, it sucked because it kind of was unexpected, and I was having a lot of fun playing with those guys, but it's something that, I wouldn't be able to hold against somebody. Just wanting to do their own thing rather than being a support for someone else's music. And that, it's been hard for me trying to keep a group together, and I had it like explained to me that, if you're looking at it from someone else's perspective, you're playing in an original band, but if just like one guy is doing all the writing, like the others are never going to be as invested in it.
No, that's a great point. And I think that's a good reasoning for people who are trying to make something big and cohesive to kind of take a little bit of what everyone else is taking around them too, because it's easy to just you want them to be invested in what they're doing, not just feeling like they're playing covers of your stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good way to explain it. And I don't know, it's not like I ever consciously made the decision that like, well, I'm going to write everything myself and not, include anybody else. And I've always tried to be good about, letting everybody put their own spin on it.
Exactly.
It's not like I sit over the guys and be like, okay, the bass line goes like this, and this. It's like, here's the chords, you're free to kind of make it move however you want to.
Sure.
But as far as like actual like writing of a song, it's something that's always just been very kind of like
personal and private.
Personal for me, yeah. Private's a good way to put it. It's just, I have been in a room with a group of 3 or 4 guys, and like with the intention of trying to come up with something, and it never really works for me like that. Just
I can group source like music. I think is great for that. I can't with lyrics. I just end up because you're working your way through, and someone comes up with a line, and you're like, I don't like that line, and then you get voted down, and then you're trying to work off that, and it's like, well, I don't like that first line to begin with. What the hell am I supposed to do now?
Right.
So, but we are out of time. Brendan Shea from Brendan and the Strangest Ways, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
All right, and that was our interview with Brendan Shea from Brendan and the Strangest Ways. Here on the Struggle is Real Buffalo Music Podcast on LWNY.com. Next up, we have a track from nuSpeak, from Porchfest on May 18th, and this is a long song, but it's quite lovely, and it's called The Dark, and it is by nuSpeak again. And yeah, that's next here on the Struggle is Real Buffalo Music Podcast on LWNY.com.
The song's called The Dark. It's on the beginning EP. You can stream or download it. So that's good. Shines a light into the cave where my heart had dug its grave. The chill of self-decay, it makes me wonder why I'm here. If there's a reason, it's unclear. Now I'm worried that I've lost control. Oh, I'm worried that I've lost control. Oh no, I'm afraid of the dark in my head. What should I have said or left unsaid? I don't trust myself with my reckless hands on your heart. I could pull it apart, but I don't want to make you cry. I don't want to make you cry. It cannot be without the fight between me and what is right. The darkness has its way with the day, and now we're done. And now my head's a loaded gun, and I'm worried that I've lost control. Oh, I'm worried that I'll lose control, 'cause I don't trust myself. I'm afraid of the dark in my head. What should I have said or left unsaid? I don't trust myself with my reckless hands on your heart. I could pull it apart, but I don't want to make you cry. barely see it. In the dark. A light so dim, you can barely see it. In the dark. Don't give away the light. Don't give up on the fight. Though try as I might, I don't trust myself. I'm afraid of the dark in my head. What should I have said or left unsaid? I don't trust myself with my reckless hands on your heart. I could pull it apart, but I don't want to make you cry again.
All right, folks, and that was The Dark by nuSpeak on the Struggle is Real Buffalo Music Podcast on allwny.com. Now we're going to talk about some upcoming shows, and we've got some great ones coming up. On June 12th, Newfound Glory is coming to Town Ballroom. Newfound Glory coming to Town Ballroom wouldn't normally excite me, but they are going on tour in support of From Your Screen to the Stereo, Volume 3, which is... It's some cover albums they've made with popular songs from movies, and I haven't heard anything from the third album yet. The first two had songs like King of Wishful Thinking, That Thing You Do, that Don't Want to Miss a Thing by Aerosmith, and I gotta say, I actually think I like the Newfound Glory versions better in almost all the listenings. And I mean, for a lot of it, it's actually some pretty well-written stuff. Jesus Christ, GPS. It keeps interrupting me to warn me that there's a slowdown when I can literally just look up and see that the slowdown is there. Anyway, so yeah, they're playing in support of another one of these cover records. I don't usually care for them, but I love the arrangements of these stuff, and I think if you actually go and listen to any of those albums, they're really well produced. They're very slick sounding, and as someone who's not a big fan of the band, I can kind of listen to it from a technical aspect of things and be pretty impressed with the whole thing. So they are going to be at Town Ballroom. They're also going to be playing with Real Friends, Doll Skin, and the Early November. I'm only super familiar with the Early November, and back in the day, they were kind of cool, so I'm excited about that show. On June 14th, Scathed has an album release show, also at Town Ballroom. This one is going to be with Carpool, Eerie Shores, and friends of the podcast, The Scarecrow Show.
We know.
Stop. Shut the. All right. So yeah, I'm really excited about the prospect of seeing the Scarecrow show on that big stage in Town Ballroom. So I think that's going to be a really cool show to see. I'm not super familiar with Scathed, but we are playing a song from their new album next, so you can kind of check that out and figure out if you want to go hang out. But I've heard good things about Carpool and Erie Shores, though I haven't had a chance to see them yet, but I think it'll be a good show. And then the last one is on June 21st. We have another Struggle is Real show. This one is our headliner's Chucky Campbell. We're also going to have Deuce Ellis, who's on tour. He's coming from New York City. We're going to have Type Relevant, Kelly Vellucci, Sean and B, and DJ Soyotos, and the whole night is going to be hosted by Elbiz. And this is a great lineup. I'm going to punch my phone in the goddamn face right now.
You sure you want to keep recording this while this is going on?
Well, I did until you said that.
Okay, sorry.
So Chucky Campbell, Type Relevant, and Kelly Vellucci are all some of the bigger names in local hip-hop, so they're definitely worth checking out. Sean and B features Brandon Sylvia, formerly of Intent to Sell, who I think has a really great flow, and his voice sounds aggressive and impactful, if that makes any sense. And then Soyotos is going to be closing off the night with a dance party. So that's going to be super fun. So you can come check that out. That's on June 21st. That's going to be at Milky's, and that one's going to be $8 to get into. And then next, we have a brand new song by Scathed here on The Struggle is Real. It is called Waves. So check it here on The Struggle is Real Buffalo Music Podcast on allwny.com. that's all we have for episode number 37. So, we kind of stripped back everything for this episode before everything's going to start getting real fancy in our new studio. So starting with our next episode, you are going to hear us in a clarity that's just going to make our stupidity all the more clear. I don't have a guest lined up yet, which I'm sure that's going to work out really well. But, new studio. We're going to try some new... You stupid fucking car. We'll be at our new studio. We're going to be trying some new formatting stuff out. We're still going to be bringing you the struggle of local musicians, local music, and our guide to upcoming concerts. But, we're going to screw around with the formatting and see what happens. Check out Brendan and the Strangest Ways on any online platform where you can stream music. And you can check out allwny.com or download the AllWNY app to check out AllWNY and its family of podcasts. And that includes The Skeleton Closet with Carl Winslow, Corey Comments, The Nick and Dan Show, The Think So Joe Show, hosted by Jumble Krungleberry and Peepsy Spoopy... I didn't get it right. The Nick and Dan Show, The Nick and Dan Show, The Think So Joe Show, hosted by Jumble...
Slow down a tiny little bit.
The Nick and Dan Show. The Think So Joe Show, hosted by Jumble... I'm saying Jumble, and I say Jumbo.
Oh.
The Think So Joe Show, hosted by Jumbo Krungleberry and Peepsy Spooty Bits. And our favorite podcast, The Big Picture with Michael Sargent, where he's already dreaming up a conspiracy theory for our disappearance. You can find us at facebook.com/The Struggles Real Podcast. You can find us on Twitter at SIR Podcast NY. You can reach out to me on Facebook or Twitter at Sir William Idol. And tune in to ThinkTwiceRadio.com. That is all for us. Being a musician is chaos. Please be kind. See you next time and keep struggling.